to do to begin with was to look at the tradition of bridal wear and kind of explore why it is the way it is. And something which kind of stuck in my mind and seemed a good place to start was to look at the idea of being royalty for a day. So I've called this section Queen for a Day. And it's quite interesting, really, because also what was an important part of looking at bridal wear was looking at why they are white or cream. And, you know, they've been white and cream at various points throughout history, and that's been popular at various times. But the reason, arguably, that they're popular now, white wedding dresses, is because Queen Victoria, when she married Prince Albert in 1840, she wore a white wedding dress, which at the time was considered to be fairly simple. It was designed by William Dyson, made by Mary Bertans using Honiton lace, which is handmade in Devon. But other than that, it wasn't very elaborate and very rich, and up till that stage, wedding dresses had been about kind of a lot of colour, a lot of fur, jewels, anything to express a level of wealth, because weddings really were about a political transaction or maybe a business transaction, and the bride came to be representative or symbolic of the wealth of her family. And Queen Victoria, obviously, it's very well known that she was madly in love with Prince Albert, and I think perhaps what's suggested by her wearing a fairly simple and plain dress is that she didn't want to go through all kind of the vulgarity of having a very elaborate dress, and actually she wanted to present herself to Albert and to her public as kind of a pure and honest wife and queen who took the idea of marriage very seriously. And I think people kind of started to latch onto this after that, and so they became very popular, white wedding dresses. So I also looked at other wedding dresses which were popular in the public eye. So I've looked at, for example, Princess Diana, Kate Middleton, Grace Kelly, and all these different silhouettes that were coming out. So it's interesting to look at the differing styles of dress and what that says about the princess or the public figure at the time. So, for example, Kate Middleton's dress, like Queen Victoria's, was quite simple. The detail was in finely made lace, and she's not wearing lots and lots of jewels as Queen Elizabeth I did when she married Prince Philip. And I think this is really reflective of how the royal family were trying to deal with the tough economic climate of 2011 when Kate married William. So they need to be seen to kind of react to this, because if they aren't seen to react to the tough economic climate and kind of are very excessive in the way they present the wedding, then they risk disillusioning and ostracizing themselves from the public, which is sort of suicide in public relations terms. So I think that's kind of why Kate's dress was the shape that it was. And in a differing way, Princess Diana's dress was almost kind of pre-Raphaelite in style. You know, she kind of looks like a Rossetti painting. The dress is very exaggerated, very large sleeves, long train, and she kind of is presented as being quite angelic. And I think for the 80s, what they were needing was, what the royal family were needing, is a refreshed view of the royals. So Princess Diana needed to be presented as an ideal, a people's princess that would capture the imagination of the public and be a living fairy tale. So that's why her dress was the way it was shaped. And Grace Kelly, you know, she was a style icon, so hers needed to reflect the silhouette of the 50s, which it did. You know, it was quite different at the time, and it's cut with the higher neckline, the long sleeves, all the lace. And like Kate, she's an everyday girl. She is a movie star, but she's from a normal background, and she's marrying into royalty, in this case Prince of Monaco. I think that's kind of why Kate tried to reflect that silhouette when she had her dress designed by Sarah Burton for the House of Alexander McQueen, because again she wants to remind the public that she's an everyday girl marrying into the royal family, which kind of helps the public to connect with the royal family and see them as everyday people, which I think was important at the time when the royal family were becoming, like they do in cycles, becoming outdated or seen as outdated. So it was a big opportunity to refresh an enthusiasm for the royal family in time for the Diamond Jubilee. The next kind of item on the list of things I wanted to look at, which kind of led on from looking at the Queen for a Day idea, was to kind of go completely to the other end of the spectrum and look at gypsy weddings, which I guess over the past kind of 4 years have been quite popular within popular culture and the media, with programs like My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding. So they have become the modern phenomenon when it comes to weddings. And I think from looking at the imagery, the silhouettes and the styles of dresses and the aspirations of the brides, it was quite clear to me that they were drawing on this idea of being a princess. So this is on pages 10 to 11 of the sketchbook, if you want to have a look. So obviously there's a competitive nature within the gypsy community to have the biggest dress and the most diamantes or lights on the dress, or the most outrageous dress, and kind of the dresses are at the forefront of the battle to keep up appearances between families. I think the general rule of thumb with the dresses is kind of the bigger the dress and the more brash it is, the brighter the colours and the more kind of accessories you can throw on it, the better it is, and the wealthier the family, or the better the family is that you come from. So I thought, well, obviously this is just a facade, so let's look a bit deeper into it, and that turned out some kind of sad results really, in that what it really boiled down to was that the wedding day was the one day in which the gypsy girls could escape a future which was inevitable to them from birth, really, in that the wedding day is the day that they can become a princess, and kind of after the wedding day they become enslaved in kind of domestic duties and kind of wholly submissive to their husbands, into a life which is really not that happy, and the wedding day is quite a sad day for them, really, because they leave behind a family they know and they have to move out and into a new life which they don't know that much about. So the wedding day is the day when they can be a princess and not a servant, and the dress itself represents this sense of escapism. Quite a poignant image to me was the gypsy girl going home after her wedding with this huge wedding dress, and she wasn't even actually able to fit it into the caravan she was moving into. So the dress was bigger than the life that she was going to have, literally and figuratively. And I think this was really sad, and obviously that's kind of totally against what I was hoping to achieve with my collection, but also that idea of being freed by the clothing is something that is exactly what I want to draw on, and I'm not suggesting that lives of my clientele are going to be potentially miserable afterwards, but I do want the wedding dress to have that sense of being an escapism in a fun way for a day. So that's what I drew from the gypsy wedding.
We are shining.